In-Depth Radio, News Talk 1010. I'm Jerry Agar. Rubina Ahmed-Haq joins me, financial journalist for alwayssavemoney.ca. Rubina, good morning.
Good morning, Jerry.
Are we in trouble?
Yeah, we're in a lot of trouble. When it comes to the markets, we're looking at triple-digit losses both here in Canada and in the U.S. So trouble financially is just really, my comment is a little bit off the cuff, but really we're looking at, another European country that is just on the brink of default. And, their Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi saying that he's going to be stepping down anytime soon. And we're now looking to see how they're going to shore up the problems in Italy. And that's putting a lot of really negative tone through the markets right now.
So this is the market hates uncertainty.
The market hates uncertainty, but also, Jerry, the problems are a little bit more deep-rooted than that. The European issues, I'm going to say something a little controversial. We always hear about the European lifestyle, about how, people in Europe get 6 weeks holiday, they take it a lot easier, they think the Americans and Canadians are crazy that, we work so hard. This is kind of the byproduct of that the European nations simply were not working enough to accommodate their lifestyles. And Italy and Greece is a great example of countries that, for many, many decades have sort of prided themselves on this lifestyle that, is unlike anywhere else in the world. And this is now what is sort of the byproduct of that, is the fact that the people were not working enough to sustain the lifestyle that they wanted to have. And Italy, they have to bring in those strict austerity measures. People have to get back to work and start paying taxes if they're going to really get themselves back on their feet.
Yeah, I used to argue this with people years ago when they would bring up this idea of we're just doing it wrong and we're not good to workers, and people in Europe get 8 weeks off and people in Europe do this and people in Europe do that. And I said, well, those chickens are going to come home to roost eventually, because unfortunately they aren't willing to accept the lifestyle that goes along with not working very hard. And, and people used to think, once again, that I'm just the ignorant conservative who didn't care about the poor working man. But here we are.
Well, Jerry, I like to take it easy just like the next person, and I absolutely agree that time off is a good thing, and that there are some of my friends that I would look at them and say, you need to take a little bit of a vacation. Money isn't everything.
Right.
But the fact that, you've got one country in the United States where their workers are working 50 weeks, and then you've got another country, Italy, where their workers are working 8 weeks less than that, eventually that productivity is going to be so much, the disparity between the two will be so much that the country simply will not be able to afford its lifestyle. And on top of that, they've been living these lavish lifestyles where, their government workers are paid very great wages, that they have early retirement, and it's not sustainable. You cannot survive as an economy like this for the long term if your people are just taking it easy all the time.
Well, I think if you were a person who was able to get a job that would pay a certain wage, say, for 6 months out of the year, and then you went skiing or whatever you did for 6 months out of the year, some people do that kind of ski bum kind of lifestyle, but you were willing to actually live in a little one-room shack and, and say, look, I know I just lay around for half of the year, but I can afford it because I don't have very many material needs, then who are you and I to criticize that? But that's not what's been happening in Europe.
And also the governments, Jerry, are very corrupt, where they have been spending beyond what they can really afford. And this is really the number one problem, is that instead of actually saying, we need to collect more taxes, or we need to cut back on our public services, or we need to do something to be a little bit more economically sound, let's just borrow more money and continue to live the way that we are. That has been the number one issue, and that's why Italy was so quickly to, I wouldn't say fall, but definitely the fact that we've been hearing about Greece for 2 years, and in only 2 days Berlusconi said he's going to step down. I think that's why things are happening so quickly, is that it has come to that breaking point where so many European nations are basically bankrupt, and there's really no one that can help them. And the only thing they can do is do a dramatic shift of leadership and bring in austerity measures, and that's the only way that they're going to get their fiscal house in order. All
right, and it would be interesting to watch, I suppose, if anyway, but the fact of the matter is it's affecting us, and the markets are down how much?
The markets are down right now, triple-digit losses on the TSX, about 163 last time I checked. The Dow Jones, a lot worse, more than 200 points down. This really is a reaction to everything that's happened overnight in Italy, and the fact that, again, there's uncertainty in the markets. We really still don't know what's happening with Greece. And there's still, problems in our own countries. We still have, we had higher unemployment announced last week, that more Canadians are out of work than were last month. So there's still internal problems that we're dealing with that doesn't give investors confidence that they want to go in and they want to start investing in anything right now.
Yeah, and then I see Liberal politicians today reacting to the announcements yesterday by Flaherty, saying the government needs to spend more and more and more money. Are they not paying attention?
Well, I mean, politicians will say anything to make anybody vote for them and keep them in office. And I mean, I don't really necessarily think that everything that, whether it be Canadian politicians or Italian politicians, say is what really is the truth. But I mean, Canada's situation is a lot better than the European nations. I mean, our bond, if you compare it, I mean, we're only getting 1.88% today compared to, Greek bonds way over 10%, Italian bonds close to 7%. I mean, the trust that people have in the Canadian economy is so much more. So we can, if we needed to, afford to spend money on certain things if it came to that. Whether it's the right thing to do, I don't know. We spent billions of dollars on economic stimulus, hired a ton of people to do so many things around the country. Those people are now laid off because they're all contract jobs. So I have varying opinion about whether governments should spend money to stimulate the economy or whether they should have long-term goals of actually saying, okay, in 10 years, where do we want to be? How do we get there? How do we do sustainable development in Canada so that all of us can be back at work in good jobs?
Rubina Ahmed-Haq, financial journalist for alwaysavemoney.ca. Always good to talk to you. Thanks for this.
Thanks, Jerry.